Welcome to the Lifestyle Chase. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. Proudly hosted by me, Chris Little. Without further ado, let's get started. So, welcome to episode 41 of the Lifestyle Chase. My guest today is the one and only Jelena Mrdjenovich. Did I get it right?
Perfect.
Perfect. View. So how's your day going?
It's good. It's good, yeah. Another day, champs, which is fun.
Totally. And I researched a few of your podcasts, and the cool thing was the ones that you guested on before were kind of like in the starting of champs or before champs. So then your fans get to hear your experience with champs. So if you could summarize it in 3 phrases with considering the growth, considering the obstacles, the triumphs, how would you describe your champs experience in 3 phrases?
Well, I just have 4 words.
That works?
Yeah. I had 4 words. Challenging, exciting, rewarding, and motivating. For me, all of kind of those things. And I think those words encompass a lot more. But I think to summarize it, those are the things that I've experienced.
I think the thing that stands out to me most about champs is the genuine support. You can see right through that people are looking out for each other. I worked at Central for a while. I've since kind of moved on from there, but in the times when I saw champs was celebrating something, it was just like that true support. Because you see people in their behind the scenes thing, and they're still looking out for each other, and that's so amazing.
What's been rewarding, part of the rewarding part for me has been the community, which I'm not generally speaking accustomed to. I'm part of the Edmonton community as a whole, but throughout my boxing career, it's been me in a gym by myself.
Yeah.
So I worked out, my coach and I, in a gym, but we were in our own little world, right? And then, same thing with my strength and conditioning. It was always just me and my trainer. And one of the big things about boxing is they always say it's one of the loneliest sports in the world. It's you and your brain, and if you're lucky enough to have an amazing coach like I do, it's just you guys versus the world. And what's been amazing with champs is that now I have this whole community that's become part of my life, which honestly I wasn't expecting, but it's been so incredibly rewarding because that's where that motivation comes in as well. So every time I'm in that room teaching or I'm here training and I see people coming in going through whatever they're going through in their life, good, bad, ugly, every time they step in through those doors, it's a little bit of an extra motivation for me. And that's something I didn't think I needed because I'm very self-motivated. But I think that's what took me to another level in my last fight here.
Totally. You got another fight coming up. It's been all up in the social media. Tell us more about that.
So the next fight's June 22nd. We've kind of been on the hook for about 7 months negotiating for different fights. We were promised a big fight in New York, and then the promoter for some reason couldn't make it work out. And there's a lot of politics in this sport. That's probably my least favorite part about boxing. And unfortunately, we just couldn't make it work. So the one thing we can control is to fight at home. Edmonton always welcomes us with open arms. And honestly, I prefer fighting at home. This community is something different. And it's always been super special for me. So I've been very fortunate to fight here. So we chose to come home, fight at home June 22nd. Opponent is yet to be announced. We have someone, we're negotiating terms in a contract, but hopefully that will be announced shortly.
And it's easier said than done with arranging fights and getting things happening. In my research that I've done with your past getting fights set up, there's a lot of pushback. What are the 3 top obstacles to setting up a fight?
Well, one of the major obstacles is you're a female in a male-dominated sport, and that is still a reality, unfortunately. And so the money isn't quite there. I agree. I want to be paid like the men do. I would love to be paid some Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather money, but that's not a reality right now in the sport at the current situation. maybe one day, and then maybe one day I can look back and say, hey, I was part of that, creating that. But at this point in time, so that is one of the major obstacles, is A, trying to get the money to be able to pay the women, and then B, negotiating a salary and a purse, is what we call it in boxing, that's applicable and affordable. And that, again, is not me. That's my promoters. So I think that's where a lot of people get confused. They're like, well, Jelena, why can't this happen? I'm like, I don't know. Talk to my promoters. Like, yes, I have a really close relationship with them, but at the end of the day, it's not money out of my pocket. It's money out of their pocket. And so one is the whole negotiation process. It's still a challenge with women. Two is actually just finding someone who wants to step up and fight.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that, because I welcome all opponents. I love to fight. I love fighting anybody. Like, so for me, that's been something that's been frustrating. But again, it's something that hasn't changed in 17 years, so it's nothing new. It just, you kind of have to shoulder it a little bit more. And when you get layoffs like I've had almost a year, it becomes a little bit more frustrating.
Makes sense. How do you, say there was no more boxing bags that you could punch? There's nothing left to punch. You can't box to get rid of frustration. How would you cope with things that are just, pissing you off? What would be your coping mechanisms?
I've had this question actually recently when we did the Inside of Athlete's Head with CBC.
Yeah.
And I actually never really thought about it up until that point, and I'm just so very fortunate that I have such an amazing team around me. And my coach has been an integral role in that, and he's kind of my level head. And whenever I feel like I'm gonna freak out, I just give him a shout, or I don't even have to call him, because he already knows. So he's like my second dad, and he's been around that long and since day one. And so he is kind of my coping mechanism. Very close to my family, and that's just not my blood family, but I've created a nice little family unit, and I think everybody kind of everybody knows everybody, but every boxer is crazy. We got a little bit of instability up here somewhere, because it takes a special person. And special, crazy, whatever you want to say special is, to want to get punched in the face and punch someone in the face, you know? So it takes a different cat to do that, to want to do that. And I say this in front of 10 people, 100 people, 1,000, 100,000. There's a lot of pressure. And so, I'm very fortunate that I've had an even keel along the way, because I've had the support team. Again, they can't always be there, and so sometimes I just have some alone time. Totally. I'm a big person, when you're around so many people and you've lived your life, I've grown up since my 20s in the public eye, so to speak. I really value my quiet time, and honestly, I find lately I literally just go home and I lay there.
Yeah.
And you get to just kind of reflect, calm down, figure out what you need, and then you move forward. So besides my family and my support team, I have that quiet time if I need.
That makes sense. I think it's so important to talk about that on a podcast, because especially for mine, I have a big spectrum of guests. People think they have it pegged. They're like, oh, he's only talking to famous people. But it's just I want people to understand that perspective, that everybody kind of needs those same things, and it looks different to everybody. And then they can relate to you, because they're going to understand that they need quiet time too, to stay stable. And they need a support group too. You need to sort of honor your relationships, be it family or friends that feel like family, and just have those things. Now, I'm thinking about your coach right now, and I have a feeling he's given you some pretty rock solid advice over the years. If you could pick out just a few of the best pieces of advice that he's given you, what would they be?
I think part of it, and they're maybe not his words. He's Eastern European, came to Canada when he was young.
Yeah.
And not young, probably, 14, 15. But, one of the things he taught me was integrity. One of the big things is, I think, and things that I've learned along the way is just if you're true to yourself and you believe in yourself, And the people who, if you can make the people who matter proud of you by your actions, then you're doing all right. So, you know, not that I don't care what people think, but the average Joe Blow walking across the street, I don't care what he thinks, whether I'm a success or a failure, as long as my coach feels like I'm a success, my dad, my mom, my sisters, you know, my team here, you know, as long as I can be proud of what I do day to day and I'm being the best me I can be, then you're doing all right. You know, everybody goes through a lot of shit in their life and at different points in times. Yeah. And that's in me included. I mean, I've won and lost more world titles than I care to admit. You know, I've had 10 losses, but every time I've been rock bottom in my career, you know, I've had a team say, okay, Jelena, take your minute to like wallow in your self-pity and whatever, but shake it off, get your shit together, and let's move on. Let's figure out how to be a better person tomorrow.
Yeah.
And better person means better athlete, better sibling, better friend, better whatever. Let's move forward. Let's move that needle 1% more each day.
Yeah.
And so for him, I know Milan, he's big on just me being the best me that I can be. And that took a while to believe. Like, he believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You know, when we had I think it was our 5th fight, and he looked at me, and, you know, I had a lot of doubters in the city, and he goes, you know what? I promise you, within 2 years, we're going to have a world title. And I laughed at him. I literally laughed in his face. And I was like, haha, okay, Milan, like, whatever. And I rolled my eyes. Like, I literally had that same response that I just gave you. And we were in the ring. I won my first world title via 5th round knockout. I couldn't have wrote the story better. And he looked at me, and I jumped on him, and I was just overwhelmed. I don't know if I believed that I just won it at that moment. He's like, I told you so. And I was like, what are you talking about, crazy man? And he's like, I told you we'd win this. And I was like, oh my goodness, like you did tell me this. He goes, see, I believe in you when you don't even believe in yourself. And that's what you have to know, is that there are people around you who will believe in you no matter what.
Yeah.
Who cares about all the headlines saying that I'm too pretty to box, I'm been given everything because of who I am, and that I'm just a princess? We don't care about that stuff. He's like, all you should care about is that I believe in you. And I looked at him, and this was, I mean, I think it took a little while to process, you know, but at one point I remember being like, holy shit, you're right. You're right. You do believe in me, and that's all that I care about. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I think those were the words that I think resonated the most with me.
And I think, like, it's so true, and it's so important to have people that feel that way in your circle. Like, whoever is listening to this, people need to find people like this to be around them. Because if your people around you are just talking trash.
Well, and to also put a little caveat to that, like, he also keeps it real.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if I'm being a crappy person or a crappy athlete, or my head's getting too big, he's the first one to bring me right back down.
Absolutely.
But that's because he cares, right? If you have just the average person who's always talking trash, like, I remember my first loss, and it was like the whole city was on my shoulders, and then I lost, and everybody was like kicking me in the ass. Like, I'm like, okay, guys, like, I love Edmonton, but you guys are really shitty fans. Like, you know, I love this city, I think, more than anybody else, but this city is the first one to turn on you.
Yeah.
And that sucks, because I've been through all the ups and downs, and I laugh because I have a couple of friends that, you know, play on the Eskimos, play on the Oilers, and I'm like, you know, I feel bad. Like, I genuinely feel bad, because I know where you've been. But you got a team of you guys to shoulder it along the way and be friends with. I'm like, I've been there, but by myself. And so I know how crappy it is. And so, like, I will always be an Edmonton Oilers fan. I will always be an Eskimos fan, no matter how crappy we're doing.
Yeah.
And I will always support, because I've been there. And, you know, what people have to understand is that, you know, just as what we're going through as athletes, we're just human too. Yeah. I'm not invincible. Yeah, I might get paid to do this job, but at the end of the day, I get bumps and bruises just like you. I have crappy days just like you. I slept through my alarm today. Like, I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? But that's where you have a good team to bring you back up, and people like for example, Robbie covering my class today because I slept in. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, I didn't sleep last night.
Yeah.
You know, but like things like that where, you know, your support team is important, and you know, I think what people need to realize is that all athletes are just human.
For sure. Well, I was lucky enough I got to have an interview with Ryan Jones, former Oiler.
Yeah.
And just like talking
Good
to him, yeah, totally great dude. And my favorite thing was hearing from him about social media and its effects. Like, some people are bulletproof. Some of those players are dishing stuff back out. But like, when you're like trashing a person on social media, like, they have a heart that beats the same way, blood pumps the same way, you trashing him, like, it's
so I always say, like, and this is something that I was very lucky that I lived kind of my youth where I was making decisions about who I was going to be, wasn't in the social media era. And I'm very fortunate for that, because I think it takes now, you know, these keyboard cowboys is what I like to call them, who sit behind a desk and feel like they can have an opinion on how I live my life and what I do. You know, they're kind of unbelievable. So, you know, every person is going through something different in their lives at different phases. You don't know what happened that morning, what happened that year, what happened all these years prior. Everybody's just trying to get through the day and to live for tomorrow, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you know, I try and avoid hating on people socially, social media, this and that, and it's one of the big reasons why I've stayed away from trash talking in boxing. You know, I don't trash talk people face to face, real life. I tell you what I think, and I'm very honest, and that, again, these are just my opinions, but I've always avoided trash talking because it's not who I am. You know, there's other people who, you know, they've made their whole career of it, and they've had to for different reasons, you know. But at the end of the day, I don't need keyboard cowboys in my life either. So I always just try and like stay away. I laugh at some of them. Some of the stuff that I read is funny, but it's not directed towards me. But I, you know, at the end of the day, like, there's no place for that.
Well, I mean, I think the best sentiment to take from it all is, honestly, if a person is critical towards somebody else, it's often because of like the shit that they're dealing with inside. So you're like, you just revealed your biggest weakness because you're trying to dish that out on other people.
Yeah.
But it's hard to wrap your head around that sometimes.
Cyberbullying, it's just a different way of a schoolyard brawl.
Yeah, it's real. So on the topic of like men's boxing versus women's boxing, because that was something I was thinking about. I was like listening to the other podcasts, and it was really starting to sink in, like, just the difference in how much money comes in, how much attention. I'm like, why? Because you think about it, like, women's boxing is entertaining. Women's boxing gets your heart rate up. Women's boxing, like, that's badass. And like, how, if somebody's listening, say you had the most influential people listening to this podcast by some crazy fluke, and they could do something to change the market, what do you think needs to happen with society to start to equal that out?
Well, I believe it's starting. It's you know, from when I started in 2003 to now we're 2019, there has been a progression. And you know, I think one of the huge factors of that was the UFC accepting women's MMA.
Yeah.
That was, I think, a big door opening for us. I mean, MMA wasn't the first one to accept fighting, you know, like there's been kickboxing, you know, Muay Thai, boxing, you know, we've been around for a long time, but the exposure, the UFC not social media, but media and promotion, that huge giant opening the doors and actually accepting it was a big step for them.
Yeah.
And it also trickled down to us too with women's boxing. The needle is moving. It's progressing. Like now, Top Rank has signed Michaela Mayer, like, who is an Olympian, and you know, Clarissa Shields. So all of these female Olympic athletes in boxing are now getting the exposure. I think the problem now is just putting the good quality fights on mainstream broadcast. And that's starting to happen. It really is. It's not there. I mean, for me, everything I've done and the highlight reel that is my career is equivalent to the Manny Pacquiao's. I mean, Floyd Mayweather is a special person in his own self, because he's created himself, and the marketing, the social media, the everything is insane. He's the highest paid athlete in sport. So, but now you have the Saul Alvarez, Canelo, you have Triple G's, so you have these fighters that now, you know, I've done the same thing as them. I've had the same amazing knockouts as them, but I'm not in the same level. Like, I'm not even like a 10% pay grade as them. So that part's frustrating, and I think the big thing is like taking a chance on your women, right? I mean, you look at the fitness industry. The major consumer of fitness industry is women. So I don't know why you aren't willing to gamble on these women and support them, right now, when those are your consumers. Those are the people who spend the money on the products, spend the money on the courses, spend the money on the classes, buy the magazines. Whatever you're giving, they're the ones who are buying it.
Yeah.
You know, the men, they try and figure it out on their own. They call their bros and they figure it out that way. And yeah, they watch some fighting. That's cool. But guess who really loves fighting? Like, really deep down is the women. Because we're the ones who are fighting day to day just to kind of get ahead and get to that same level. And that's something that's life. Not just sports, not just boxing. That's just life. Like, you know, unfortunately, that's just the way we were born. That's what we were born into. And to make a change is just taking a little step every day. And we're starting. And all I hope is that it's in my career time that we get that major jump. But I don't know if it'll happen. If not, I can say I was a part of the journey.
Mm-hmm. I think it will be. I think it'll be within your career. I think that...
You forget I'm 36.
It's okay. I'm a very optimistic person. Probably like the most... I like poop rainbows out my butt.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I can say that I've been through all the scales of it. But I am... It's crazy to say, and I'm not accepting this. This is by no means me saying I'm retiring anytime soon. But, I'll be 37 June 24th, so 2 days after my fight. And, this frustration of waiting on these fights for a year.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of thing, and the good fights to happen. That's getting to me. It's wearing on me. There's a lot of stuff now with champs that I would like to elevate and expand and build off of. And so it's becoming more and more challenging to kind of shoulder all of it, no matter how amazing, which my team is amazing. There's still things that I want to put my own little sprinkle on and be involved in. So, there's only so many hours in a day and so many physical hours I can be on my feet.
For sure. Makes sense. The way I see it is everything starts with something small, and even if you were just like a consultant in the process kind of thing, like it could totally happen. You just get like one person kind of do, and then they think, oh, maybe we could have this at Rogers, then it sells out,
No, we tried the Rogers thing. We really did, and it's really hard. I don't know how anybody puts an event on there, because everybody has to watch their bottom line, and just financially it didn't make sense. It was a big gamble, and the Shaw, or whatever the new name is, Edmonton Events Center, has been my home, and they've worked with KO Boxing for a long time. So for us, it was less of a gamble. As cool as it would be to fight at Rogers, everybody's pencils have to be really sharp to make that happen.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So thinking about the people who have come through your space at Champs, thinking about like all the fitness journeys, all the transformations, the gains of courage, like what are the biggest takeaways from that? Like, you've seen some incredible things happen here.
Forget about the physical, because I think that's that's a bonus, right? I know, yes, sometimes health-wise, that's a huge thing.
I'm on the same page there.
I mean, I loved your post today.
Thank you.
Right? And to see people's journeys is cool. Like, to see your journey has been cool. But to actually be a part of people's emotional and mental transformation is something that I actually never... A, it never went through my mind. But B, I never expected to get such an emotional attachment to it. And I don't even know if I'm saying it the right way, but the only way I can think of it is like to see people and see how far they've come and to come out of whatever they're coming out of, and to actually, I don't think that I did anything. I opened a gym that I could train out of. Like, that was my mental, like, I was like, listen, man, we're moving our gym. I left our other gym and I was like, I've had this idea and I want to open this place. And I've been very honest, my muses were my sisters. I've been boxing before champs for 15, 16 years. And my sisters never came for a workout. Not once with me. Despite how much boxing is a part of my life. I mean, yeah, they've come and they've seen me spar here and there, but they're intimidated to go into my gym. Into the gym that I pretty much was helping run, like opening the doors and trying to inspire and motivate and whatever. I couldn't inspire and motivate my own sisters to come down and do a workout. And so I was like, Milan, I have this idea that I want to just open this gym, and there was a couple of gyms in the States and a little bit here and there, but I had this, and I'm like, I have this idea that I want to do this. And I had a couple of friends being like, no, this is super cool. Come to this gym with me and see what you think. And I went and I was like, I would make a lot of changes, but I had the most fun in this workout. And I've been doing this for 15 years. So I wanted to create a space that was zero intimidation. I know boxing is always going to have some kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can do it kind of thing. Yeah. But I wanted it to be this place where you could come in, feel so comfortable, so welcomed, and get part of this amazing kick-ass workout that I love doing, and that's changed my life. Yeah. And I say that like I've done every sport. I've done it all. I've played volleyball, basketball, soccer, whatever it is, I've done it. And a lot of them to a very high level. But when I stepped into a boxing gym, which took me a little bit of time to motivate myself to go as well, it changed my life. Like, I walked in and I was like, it wasn't just the physical, and it was a hard workout. Yeah. But it was the mental and emotional connection that I had almost immediately. Like, punching shit is fun. Like, it has been my therapy for the last however many years. And so I wanted to create that. And so when I first opened it, it was like, I just want this space that isn't going to cost me a ton of money to train in. And then I was like, okay, I want to create this space that people are going to have the workout that I love, that's changed my body, that I'm the fittest I've ever been. And then I was like, and then after we started opening and we had some of our clients share their journeys with us personally at the front desk, just standing around talking, you were like, wow. Like, they're like, no, Jelena, you don't understand. You've changed my life. And I was like, I didn't do anything. I opened a gym, man. Like, you're doing that on your own. And they're like, no, you don't get it. And it took, like, probably by the third or fourth story I heard, I was like, wow. Like, thank you for sharing, because this is amazing. So, for me, the physical journey is just a bonus. The mental and emotional journey and what this place has done for some people that have shared their story, at least, is just been so incredibly rewarding. And that goes to one of those 4 words that I shared. Like, this has far surpassed anything I ever imagined on that level.
Yeah, that's really cool. And honestly, whenever I think of journeys, I'm always thinking like at least 60% mental, 40% physical, because like what drives that physical progress is mental. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're talking shit to yourself in your head, you're not going to get anywhere physical. And like, where you really feel fulfillment, because you see people, they'll like transform their body, but they mentally, it hasn't changed. But when they mentally changed, the physical changes are more sustainable. Mm-hmm. But it's incredible, because like I've seen people rave about champs. Like, anybody that I've talked to, I've had some clients that have tried it out, and I'm like, yeah, it's great there, isn't it? And they're like, yeah, like, I never knew I could do that. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, sprinkle it onto your training. Do whatever you have to do, because that's the kind of thing, like, you're punching something. And for females especially, getting that sort of catharsis, like that feeling of, hey, I'm pretty damn powerful, that's necessary. They need it.
Yeah.
Something that I've really enjoyed watching is the progress of all of your coaches, because you got like some people who have started fresh and progressed so much.
So one of the big things for me was personality. Like, I want good people. And I'm not saying, I mean, good people that will mesh together, mostly with me. Each other, yes, but like I have, like, and I, like I said, when I first started, I didn't have a community. Like, I mean, I had my support. I have the people have supported my career in Edmonton. So I shouldn't say I don't have a community, but I haven't had people day-to-day community in my life. And so I was like, okay, like, I need to have good people that I can get along with. I mean, not that it was just about me, but that everybody meshed well together. I can teach anybody how to box. I know that. I'm very confident that I can do that. And so I wanted to hire people who meshed well with our group. And I was so very lucky that I had such an incredible group come and want to be a part of this team. And, you know, I was I was more nervous about this place than I have been for any other fight. Like, I had that, like, I believe it can work, but then you always have that self-doubt and that questioning, and you're like, oh my God, did I just mess everything up? Like, I had it not easy, because nothing's easy. Sorry. Nothing's easy in life, but, like, you know, I had worked out, I did work, but I worked on my own hours, and I got to work out again, and I didn't have any pressure other than fighting. And now, you know, I was like so nervous, because I was like, this is insane. Like, why did I open this 6,000 square foot building, where this building, as amazing as it is, was really old and costs a lot of money, and, you know, I'm putting my name and my own personal brand and what I've done for 15 years on the line. As much as I've tried to take myself out of the brand of champs to be sustainable on its own, my brother decided to throw this 80-foot Jelena on the wall.
That's awesome.
I'm like, bro, why didn't you? I'm like, why didn't you okay this with me? He's like, well, you know, I knew you wouldn't want to do it, so it's cool, isn't it? I'm like, no, it's not. But, you know, as much as I wanted to keep it away from my name, it's still me. So it was a huge gamble, and I was so nervous. But the team that have decided to help me do this is so amazing, and I'm so thankful for each and every one of them, because they are the champs brand. As much as my face is on that wall, each one of those coaches represent the brand probably better than I can. So I've been very fortunate.
Yeah. And it's really neat to see just in the real world, because social media is one thing. Like, everybody can like each other's posts and all that stuff, but like in the real world, we're seeing like champs coaches really support each other.
Well, yeah, we actually hang out. Like, it was, you know, we actually enjoy hanging out with each other, and that's been a really cool thing to watch. Is like, you know, everybody's supporting everyone, from our front desk to our coaches to management to everything, you know. And this is where you go back. Everybody goes through different things in different points in their life. And to see a unit come close together, that it's like a work family. And you know, as much as you're like, oh, I just work with that person. No, like, I genuinely care for each and every one of them. And I can probably honestly say that each one of our coaches, you know, support each other, but also our community. Which has been kind of, it's cool, because I've never experienced that. Like, I mean, I haven't played on a team sport since U of A basketball for a hot minute before I got injured, you know, like, so 2001. So, you know, my team is one guy consistently who I love to death, but, like, my coach is my team. You know, now we've added a few awesome faces who are definitely part of this journey that I'm on. But, you know, at the end of the day, it was mine.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. The next question is, out of all the fast food places in Edmonton, which one would you pick first? Pick like 3, rank them, 1, 2, 3.
Fast food, okay, like where you just drive up and go.
I mean, something that can be prepared in less than 10 minutes, like, so that opens up the door to some healthy alternatives.
Okay, so like Freshie has been my go-to for a couple of years since I started. First one was in West Edmonton Mall, right?
Yeah.
That's been my go-to, and my friend actually just opened 2 in South Edmonton Common.
Nice.
I don't have to say Freshie, but I actually enjoy their food. Chopped Leaf, I enjoy them. Good salads, good rush on the go. And KB & Co. I'm not a vegan, but I actually enjoy their food. Like I'm a farm girl at heart. My dad would kill me if he found out if I enjoyed vegan food. But yeah, so those 3 would be it. But my meal prep and the people who changed my fight and my appearance, I think, just by actually eating properly, because this is something admittedly I am not great at, is taking the time to eat. Yeah. Terrible at it. And last year we opened Champs January 9th. I had my fight April 28th. And the only reason I got through that whole training camp relatively uninjured was because of my friends at Bite Me Meal Prep. And Stacy and Dan have become good friends of mine, and they are amazing. And so if you need any kind of meal prep, like, that's actually good food to eat that you're not going to feel like you're just scarfing it down to, like, again. They are amazing. And so, on fight time, that's what I do, but those are my 3 go-to, kind of like if I need something quick.
That's awesome.
And you know what, I'm not gonna lie to you, those reduced fat turkey bacon sandwiches at Starbucks, that's my go-to breakfast meal. Perfect.
That's awesome. I think it's neat to kind of understand how the inner workings of anybody. Like, I've asked people what they like better, cookies or cake, and it's just like, now I know. That question is answered.
Yeah, so those are my, like, 3 kind of go-to meals. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still eat crappy. Don't tell Dan and Stacy, but, like, in between. And for example, now we've been up and down with fight camps. Like, I started training, I stopped training, I started training. I officially had my first day of training camp yesterday. And I texted Stacy and I was like, so camp's officially started. I should probably get on my meals. And she's like, yes. So we don't have to do a crazy weight cut. Because I am in a weight class sport. It's just a reality. And I do love food. I just kind of forget to eat it. So, like, I'm not going to lie. Yesterday I had pad thai and it was amazing. And I'm like, well, I better get this in me right now because I can't eat it for the next 8 weeks. So, like, I do love all kinds of foods, but those are my healthy kind of go-to fast food options.
Outside of food, what are the biggest obstacles of prepping for a fight? Mental, physical?
I don't know. And this was a shocker to me last camp. Like, last camp I had what should have been the worst training camp. We were opening Champs. I literally was here in the morning, napping on my floor because I was too lazy to go get a couch. Before training, because we were training here. And then I would go home, and it was just like everything was dead. Everything that could have went wrong. I got a car accident early in camp. My dog died like 3 weeks before my fight. We were here opening a brand new business, training coaches, evaluating coaches. I was doing all kinds of media because we had the moratorium for combative sports happen. Plus, it was my 50th professional fight. We were wanting to do it at Rogers. That fell through, so we were rushing to do it at the Shaw and promote it. Everything that could have probably been any kind of excuse for that fight happened. But I can honestly say every part of that helped me have the most amazing fight. At that point, that fight, I was phenomenal. I can honestly say I was happy with every part of my performance minus one round that we were so worried because my output was so high that my coach was worried that I wasn't going to be able to sustain. So he said, listen, Jelena, take the round off. Just move around and use your jab, but slow down this round. So I can only say the only part of that fight I was unhappy with was the fact that I took that round off because I would have knocked her out if I didn't. So everything that could have happened, mentally, emotionally, physically, happened. That could have been a challenge, and it could have been an excuse. Was there for April 28th. But I think if you have a strong team and you believe in the work you put into, there aren't any challenges you can't face.
That's so true.
So, you know, you have good days and bad days. My dog died. I got the shit kicked out of me for a week because I was so upset. And literally Robbie was my primary sparring partner for that fight, and he would hit me and he would feel bad because everybody felt bad. My coach was like, listen, we're not at a point where you can take days off. So you're going to have to get your shit together and you're going to have to suck it up. I know you're sad, but we have a thing here. And I walked out of training for like 3 days of sparring with literally black and blue. And every day I woke up, every day I did my run, every day I did my training. Because I had no options. And I had an amazing team around me to be like, okay, Julia, let's do this. You don't have a choice. So you're going to have a lot of challenges, but I think what you do with those, whether you make them an excuse or you make them a reason, that choice is yours. So I can take a challenge and I can make it a reason to be better, or I can make an excuse to be shitty. And I always say this, and this is on our wall of our motivational quotes, and it was funny because I was sitting in this meeting and they're like, Jenna, what do you say to inspire people? I'm like, I don't think I'm the right person to ask this. And they're like, no, but like, you have buddies that fight, like what do you tell them before fights? I'm like, honestly, I tell them don't be shitty.
Yeah.
And they laughed at me, and I'm like, because that's, you've done the work, you put in all the hard things, all you have to do is not be shitty. Don't let your mind get away from you.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is just be 1% better than you were yesterday. 1% is not a lot, you know?
But it adds up day after day after day after day.
And guess what? If you keep getting better every day, that needle goes forward. Your goal is reached, you get to set a new goal. And that's what's cool, is you get to, when you reach these goals, you get to create new ones. So I always say, when people ever ask me, like, okay, like, you know, what's your first goal, a world title? I'm like, no, my first goal was to win my first fight. And then my next goal was to get a crazy knockout. And then my next goal, when I won world title, I made a new goal every time. So I always say, set achievable goals.
Yeah.
So when you get to reach those goals, you get a mini celebration and you get to create a new goal. And that's what makes getting better achievable. So if you set these unachievable goals, I can set a goal and say, yeah, I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, shit, I can't lose 50 pounds. My frame won't allow that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't actually want to lose that much weight, but I can set these unattainable goals and then constantly be disappointed every day. Or I can set a goal, a mini goal, and say, you know what, in 3 months, I want to lose 4 pounds. But I want to lose good 4 pounds.
Yeah.
And when I do that, be like, okay, that was cool. That was awesome. Yay, pat on the back, new goal. And so whatever it is it weight? Is it a work goal? Is it, for me, I have 9 weeks to get my goal. And then once I get that one, I have a new hit list. But every time, it's one goal, one time, next step. So one of the big things, and that's where I'm saying, like, you have all these challenges, and what is the challenge? It's not really a challenge. It's a reason. It's something that I can work towards. I think when people say, what's an obstacle? Well, an obstacle is an excuse. You know, you can have these challenges that you can work through and get better, or you can have an obstacle that you can make an excuse about. So I think it's all a perspective.
Yeah, I like it. That's awesome. Something that I noticed a lot for you in your journey and what you've shared on other podcasts and other interviews is just how much it can bite. Like you can have people and then those people can change. And you can have a city that supports you and it can twist around and then that city doesn't support you. With that comes a lot of necessity to be a really good judge of character. So when you're judging character, like how do you pick through people? Like how do you find your tribe, as people say?
I am very fortunate that I had amazing role models in my life and I had good upbringing. You know, my dad, an entrepreneur, a person who had to fight every step of the way. You know, my mom, such a strong, empowering female. A brother who I admired his whole life and competed at a very high level of sports. 2 sisters that are crazy smart and run our family business. So I'm very fortunate that I had amazing people around me. That being said, you know, I've kind of forged my own path and made my own decisions, and it's a gamble. But out of all of it, I've been lucky enough that I've had good gut feelings on things.
Yeah.
And sometimes not the greatest decisions when you go against your gut, but at the end of the day, being comfortable with what you decide. So I know I'm kind of skirting around it because I have had, you know, I have made really poor decisions in my life with people around me. Not really poor, I should clarify that. Like, where you just trust people who maybe you shouldn't have. And I'm extremely stubborn, so I hate failing. Like, I hate failing. Like, you know, you have relationships that you probably could have cut a lot shorter, and I shouldn't say nothing is a waste of time, but you spent more time than maybe that person deserved in that. And you've kept people in your circle that probably weren't the best and weren't as supportive. And what I've learned is that every time you've had someone around you or every time you've had a failure, it's not a failure as long as you learn from it.
Yeah.
So for me, first fight I lost. It was my 10th professional fight. My coach had brought someone in to come and help work with us. And I remember saying to him one day, and this guy I respect him, and, you know, he's been through a lot in his life, but every day he's like, this girl I fought was from Vegas and had a lot of fights. And she's, again, one of the pioneers of women's boxing, still fighting, has a hard time getting fights, Layla McCarter. And he would say, oh, she's so good, she's from Vegas, she's so good, it's going to be really hard to beat her, and maybe you're not ready for this fight. And he kept putting this doubt in my mind. And I went to my coach, and I'm like, well, you know, I don't think this guy's a good part of our team. He's like, listen, you're just spoiled and you just want me around you. And this is like, I can't even remember what year this was, but this was early and we were still figuring each other out. I'm a hothead, he's a hothead, and, you know, sometimes we had more battles than we probably should have had. And I'm like, no, Milan, I really don't think, like, I mean, he's telling me every day that this girl's so good. Like, well, what about me? Like, we're 9-0. Like, I think I'm 9-0 with 7 knockouts or 7 stops. Like, aren't I good? And he was just like, listen, I trust this guy. You should trust this guy. And I'm like, okay. So we go through the motions. We get to this fight, and I lose. I lost, and I believe I lost that fight before the fight even happened. And so I went to my coach, and I'm like, okay, listen, I don't want to do this if he's going to be around. And I'm like, and I should have said that a couple weeks before. And he was like, you know what, you're right. I made a bad decision. We ended up rematching Layla, not even like, I don't remember the actual day, but I think it was like within half a year. And I ended up beating the crap out of her. We've had 3 epic fights, 3 amazing fights. But, you know, I'm not going to learn enough to be able to win this fight, how bad I lost it the first time. But in that loss, that was one of the first times I realized I have to keep my circle tight. You know, that was when the whole city, like, kind of turned on me, and they were like, I told you Jelena was too built up, and this and that, and, like, I was like, wow, like, it's one loss, one bad night, and you guys are all talking shit about me already?
Yeah.
And so at that moment, I realized that I had to keep my circle tight, and that I needed people who actually truly believed in me versus people who are just going to be my cheerleaders. You know, I have my family. I don't need any other cheerleaders. I love people who are genuinely going to support me because they genuinely believe in me.
Yeah.
If you want to be a hater, cool. Buy a ticket, go stand in her corner and hate on me as all you want, but pay for my ticket because I want to make money off of you.
Totally, I like that.
Because I want to prove you wrong. But, you know, like, you know, at the end of the day, every loss that I've been through and every bad decision I've made has made me part of who I am. So it's made me a better athlete, a better role model, a better ambassador, a better sister, a better friend, a better partner. Everything that I've gone through in my life and has made me somehow better. Would I have wanted to avoid half of them? Absolutely. But would I change it? No. But now I know that I can make the right decisions based on my experiences because I've learned from them. Sometimes these lessons were really shitty.
Yeah.
You know, like really bad. But at the end of the day, like going to Argentina to get my face punched in when I should have just said no to the fight because I wasn't healthy. Not a great decision. But guess what? Now I know better.
Yeah. Totally.
You know, like I had a fight where I was so sick, but I was so stubborn not to take the fight. Like I gave my sister H1N1. I didn't know at the time, but I was drunk on cough syrup in the fight. And there was no way I should have been in that position in the first place. But I was so stubborn that I told everybody I was fine. Nobody knew I was sick except my sister who drove me to the fight. To the point where she was in the hospital a couple of days later. Like, so each one of those decisions you learn a little bit, especially when you're as stubborn as me. You have to sometimes smash your head into that wall before you got to break the wall before sometimes you make the right decision. But at the end of the day, once you've actually done the damage and you've learned from it, it changes your perspective on things.
Totally.
So my circle is tight, you know, because I want it to be.
Yeah. And your mindset has empowered you to learn from failure. Like so many people just like they count it as a dead end and then turn the other way, and then they'll just never go in a forward direction ever again. They'll just stop.
Yeah.
Mindset is pretty powerful.
It's crazy, and it's crazy because when you're in it, and like, you know, there's a lot of things like, you know, people suffer through depression, anxiety, you know. A lot of different things, right? Failure, you're right, and to have that team of the one person that's like, hey, are you okay today? Like, can we, you know, like, can I help you? That one little act of kindness versus a keyboard cowboy, can change someone's life. Like, absolutely change someone's life. And there's a lot of things that you can't control, but there's a lot of things that you can try and help people to do better.
Yeah.
And so, you know, sometimes some people need to go through it on their own. I'm a kind of person who's like, people can tell me a million times and I'm like, nope, I'm smarter. No, I'm not smarter, but I got to figure it out on my own. But then there's other times like, you know, you see someone and all it takes is like, hey, how was your day?
Yeah.
And that's something that I think I'm learning in my old age, like that I'm like, hey, I can take 1 second on my day to just ask someone how they are. You know, sometimes you don't want to be there for the answer, but at the end of the day, like, how are you? Like, are things okay?
And like waiting to hear the answer, as much of a grimace on your face you might have, like, because like once you open the door to that,
you have to be willing to accept it.
Yeah, like you're there for them now. And they are trusting you, and it's a process. But when we get to see how much of a difference that makes for people, it's huge.
One of the big things that I like and what I missed from Champs, and I still do a lot of charity work and I volunteer a lot of my time. But one of the things I missed from the other gyms that I went to is it was a non-profit. And it was a gym, like my last gym was on 118th Avenue Gym, and having those kids that haven't had the greatest opportunities in life, that are willing to step through those doors and put themselves in an uncomfortable position to be able to help influence them. That's one thing that I do miss training out of those places, is that if I can make a change in one person's life, one kid's life, then I know I'm doing the right thing. And that was a big thing that drove me through the first part of my career and actually made me open my eyes to the fact that I am a role model. Because I never really embraced that name, so to speak. I always did it, but I did it because I felt like it was something that I wanted to do, not that it was a role that I had to accept.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing for me, is like just changing people's lives. Now, back then I enjoyed doing it for kids because I believe kids, you're born with the set of cards that you have to deal with and that you have to play. But if you can change those cards, if I can change one of those to a joker and they can make their own choice, a wild card, so to speak, then that's kind of cool. But at the end of the day, if you can change someone's journey for the positive, then you're doing the right thing.
Totally.
It doesn't have to be a huge movement. I don't have to change cities or I just have to change one person.
Starts with one. So there's a lot of people that kind of like are scared to get into any kind of a fitness facility or any kind of a physical change, or like obviously mental change comes with it. But they have all these excuses that they put in their head, and say that they Googled Champs Boxing Studio and they're intrigued and they like the stories, but they're too scared to wake up and go to that first class. Like, what are some statements that you'd kind of leave to sort of like hook them in?
I'd say you just have to believe in yourself. Like, and one thing is that you have to believe in wanting to change and take a risk.
Yeah.
You know, let's be honest, it's risky stepping out on the street nowadays. It's risky crossing the road. So what's the difference between crossing the street and walking into this place and giving yourself, I would say it's 50 minutes of your day, 1 hour of your day to do something positive for yourself. Now all it takes is a risk. It's a challenge. Yeah. But with a risk comes great reward. You know, nobody, one of my favorite sayings is, and this applies not just to champions, but champions take challenges and pressure as a privilege. And I don't know who said it, and I should probably Google it because I use this phrase a lot. Because the challenge is what changes you, and the challenge is what makes you better. And every challenge is a risk. But at the end of the day, that risk is going to be so much more rewarding because you did something. And that risk is on you. So you did something for yourself. You only get better if you are uncomfortable.
That is true. That is so true.
You have to, and so in order to get better, you have to find comfort in being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that is something that is probably the hardest thing, is like getting uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable.
No.
It sucks.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you don't progress without being uncomfortable.
Makes sense.
So it's like the same thing as like a new job, right? Like, anyone starting a new job is uncomfortable. That first step is a challenge. It's a risk. Remember the first time you went to school? You're probably scared shitless. Like,
totally.
You know, you didn't know what it was because you didn't know any different. But then from kindergarten to now changing from elementary to junior high, you forgot about that. Now you had 6 years being comfortable somewhere. Now you're going into a junior high school. Well, remember that day when you went to your first different junior high and you were like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? I don't have friends, Yeah. Now go to high school. And then out of high school, you went to college. So you already went through all these different steps and these different changes. Now we're adults. And now I think as adults, we become complacent with our routine.
Yeah.
Well, back when you were growing up, you had to take these risks. And I think that's what changed you and challenged you and made you a different person. You know, the choices that you made, the colleges you went to, the friends you made, the jobs you took at that time. That challenged you and changed you then. Now here in our 30s and younger, whatever age you're at, you don't want to take those challenges, but you forget about all the ones that made you who you are, that you already made.
Yeah.
So if you want to change, you just have to take a challenge.
I like that analogy too, because it's so true. Like, we get good at being uncomfortable when we're going through the younger years because it's just kind of part of the routine.
Yeah.
And then, like, this is exactly what happened to me for my pre-fitness career, I kind of like got into a spot where I was like, okay, we don't have to make changes, I'm liking this. But I was like, but there's no personal growth, what's happening? And it's just like I kind of pressed pause for a bit there, and then I unpressed pause, and it's just like a whole bunch of personal growth in a fitness career.
But you're a person who likes to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
And that's you, though. There's a lot of people who don't, A, they don't believe in themselves, or B, have never had that ability to pause, reflect, decide, and then follow through. Now, I'm a person who constantly likes to challenge myself. So that's something that I have the ability to do, because I always step back and I'm like, well, okay, I wasn't the best today. Today wasn't my best day. How can I get better tomorrow? So you and I have that quality, like whether it was how we were brought up, or whether it's just mental, or whether it's just a thing that we do. But a lot of people have a very hard time motivating themselves. And that's one actually good thing about social media that I've really enjoyed, is people using it as a platform for their own personal growth. Yeah. I follow locally and internationally a ton of people who have broadcast their journey. And I've enjoyed watching them. And like people that I even follow now later, I go back and I'm like, that is super cool to see how far they've come. Yeah. And to learn parts about other people that I can use in my own life. And so that's one thing I do really enjoy about social media, is that it is a platform to keep you accountable for your change.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, and not using it as the filter of everything great. People totally. who aren't afraid to put ugly pictures and ugly posts and, hey, guess what? I'm having a really shitty day. But this is where I'm at. This is where I plan to go, and this is where I want to go in the future. Those are people I admire way more than the Instagram models.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like, when it's used really properly, and when you can be authentic to the point where you're not, like, striving for attention, you're just trying to journal, in a way. Yeah. People along with, for the journey, like, I advocate for my clients to use it in that capacity. I'm like, you don't even need any followers, just kind of, like, put it out there.
And it's tough because you are putting it out there to the world.
Yeah.
To make opinions.
Yeah.
But, that's where, the confidence, like, I admire people's confidence like that, because I do remember when I started boxing, and when I guess I volunteered to put my life in the public eye, but I didn't really. I was just following something that I loved to do. When I look back when I was 19 at U of A, like, I didn't want to be a role model. That wasn't what I had in my mind. I didn't want to be someone that people looked up to. I didn't want to be someone people named their kids after. Like, I didn't want that. That's not the journey that I wanted. But I followed my passion, and my passion led me to this. And then my experiences led me to believe I could be someone who could positively influence people. But that being said, some of the things that you go through, it's not by choice. It's just by circumstance.
Yeah.
And, if I can leave people with one thing, is I just want people to believe in themselves and to not care what people thought. Like, I didn't have that confidence when I started. When I started, I wanted to make everybody happy, and I almost burned myself out trying to please society and please the masses. And it was a hard journey, realizing that, at the end of the day, you're not going to make everybody like you. And that, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. As long as you like yourself. And that was a hard journey for me to learn, to be honest with you. Like, I remember even transitioning into boxing and then getting the attention that I didn't want or didn't feel like I deserved. And then having that, and then realizing, okay, well, now I have to keep this up. And then when I lost it, I was devastated. I was depressed. I was demoralized. And then realizing, thankfully having the team that I had, that I was like, it doesn't matter if you don't like me. If I could change one person, I always tell this story because John Short openly said he would eat his shoe before he was a female boxing fan. And I said, you know what, John, that's your opinion, and that's really cool. That's fine by me. But I said, I promise you, by the time you're retired writing for the paper, you will not be a female boxing fan, but you will be a fan of me. And I said, I want you to drop the female and just be my fan.
I like that.
And that was one of, like, that's one thing I can say I was proud of. And, you know, for me, it was a journey. Like, he didn't like me. He respected what I did, but he didn't like me because he didn't believe women had spot. And then I was like, instead of trying to make everybody happy, I was like, I'm going to take one person each time, and I'm going to try and change their opinion. Because what you think, now you have an audience. What you think will change other people's minds.
Yeah.
And so it's just little things like that and finding little challenges. And I know I always get on tangents because I've had so many experiences in my short 36 years and 16 years of boxing. I've had a lot of things that I've gone through that have made me who I am that I almost forget sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and I look back, and from day one to day whatever it would be now, you know, it's kind of crazy to like reflect on. And that's why I enjoy doing these podcasts. I know it's like pulling tooth and nail to get me to actually commit, but I enjoy doing them because it's a time that you can reflect and be like, you know what, you're right, we could make a change in one person. Come down to the gym, check it out, it could change your life.
Yeah, totally.
But don't believe me, believe your own experience.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, and that's just not from me, that's from our clients, you know. Don't believe me, come try. If you don't like it, sorry, but it's not a waste.
Yeah. So we're gonna segue this to the final question. This is something I ask every one of my guests. And you've given so much advice, so you're gonna have to think of something fresh.
Oh my goodness.
If you could give one piece of advice to someone on how to live their life most authentically and to the fullest, what would that piece of advice be?
That's simple. Is just be the best you could be. And that's the best you day to day. Right? Every day's a little different. But every day, you know what, whether you're having a shitty day like me today, like I woke up late, I was frazzled, but I was like, I'm going to try and be the best me I can be today. And it's not going to be the best Jelena that I can be, like, in the whole entire scope of my life. But today I'm going to try and be the best version of myself. And I think if you can authentically say that you do that every day, you can't be ashamed of anything.
That's awesome. So for your fight coming up, are tickets, are they available now?
They will. I'm going to have a bunch of tickets here at the studio. I'm looking at the date. I'm like probably mid-month. They're already available on Ticketmaster. I just haven't been able to pick them up yet. Totally. So we'll have them at Champs. They are on Ticketmaster. And if you have time, come check it out. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this training, and I love what I do. And so if you have never come to a live boxing match, it is something really cool to experience live.
Yeah.
It's different, way different than watching it on TV and in a pub or wherever you've watched fights. Live is something super special because the atmosphere is unlike anything else.
I know personally I love watching fights. One of my friends is an MMA fighter, and it's just like gets your heart pumped and gets you really fired up, especially if you have somebody you're rooting for.
100%. If you have an invested interest, and then if you've never experienced one in Edmonton, I am so very lucky, and thank you to everyone who has supported me. But I'm so very lucky that I have such an amazing fan base. You know, one thing I can say that I was sad about was I wish I would have had a camera just on the crowd for my last fight, because, you know, you're so focused and you don't get to enjoy that experience.
Yeah.
But I remember last fight I took like a hot second on the top of the platform when I came out, and only a little curtain like keeping you away from it, but when I stepped out in front of everybody to feel that vibration of the excitement was something that I wish I could bottle up and give to everybody, because if you were lucky enough one day to feel that kind of support, then, you know, I actually said I'm not retiring, but I could retire happy after the last fight, because that support is something, And every time Edmonton shows up, even better. So I'm so excited for the next one.
It's gonna be big.
Well, I hope so. Like last one was, I'm like at loss for words for once in the last hour we've talked. I'm at loss for words because I've tried to explain what I felt standing up there. Never mind in the fight. In the fight, I black out. It's just go. But I literally wish I could bottle that up and sniff a little bit every day before training just to like feel that emotion. So, that's something that I thank everybody for supporting me. And if you can come out June 22nd, that would be awesome. If not, send some well wishes and maybe next time.
Totally.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me all your time. This has been probably one of my favorite chats.
I'm sure you say that every time, but this is awesome, and I love what you do, and try and inspire people just to be the best version of themselves. So it's
Totally.
cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.